So my next question, directed at Robert here, what actions can the U.S. take to support automation innovation and stay ahead in the global race for advanced manufacturing?
So before I start into that, on behalf of Jeff Bernstein, the president of the association, who couldn't be here today, I want to congratulate Scott and the entire team at MCRI for 30 years. I know he wishes he could be here, but just again, a round of applause for a really valued member of the association. So one of the things we've done at A3 over the last 18 months is really accelerate our lobbying of the U.S. government. And why is that so critical right now? We've seen that some of our competitors in the supply chain have really robust national strategies. We've seen that in Germany, and of course we know what China has done and what China is capable of. So what we've done is help restart the Congressional Robotics Caucus, which has been a really important step in speaking directly to the U.S. government about what our advocacy priorities are. And if you're interested in what A3 has established in conversations with our members in terms of what those advocacy priorities are, you can see them on our website at automate.org. But what that really means is we see the need for the government to really invest in the robotics and automation industry. So that means creating workforce and training programs. We've already hit on that in this panel. Creating the economic policies, the R&D tax credits, other tax incentives to really spur investment and research in these technologies, and ultimately help create a supportive ecosystem from a regulatory standpoint that supports automation. But really, the support of the training programs is really one of the key factors. Really investing in what we've already talked about here, the education of our youth, and really trying to create that pipeline that can support the growing automation ecosystem in this country.
Thank you. Anybody else have something to add to that?
Certainly the incentives, to allow manufacturers to be competitive by putting in automation. So incentives that allow it to be easier financially for them to invest in automation is certainly something I think is crucial.
And I know that part right now is one of the big drivers of uncertainty is the access to capital for manufacturing, right? I know that there's policy to support American manufacturing, that there's also cutting of different programs that provide support to small manufacturers. So that is kind of a little bit of part of the chaos right now that people are feeling, understanding where am I going to get this financing and how. And I think a big part of that is just you have to kind of stay on top of what these programs are, and they will change. But the important part about these programs is they're often temporary, right? Depends on the administration, it depends on the direction that things are going, and so when these programs come into place and there is help available, you got to take advantage of it while it's still there, because sometimes they get cut later, right? Have you guys seen these types of programs in the past and any impact of waiting too long?
I was just going to mention training, right? There's a lot of training programs out there that you can get some additional assistance for, but you don't always know when they're going to be available, and sometimes the money runs out. So if you want to take advantage of that, make sure you time it correctly to get the dollars while they're still there. The other thing I would add is, I think we've said the word chaos up here like 14 times. My ask would be I'd love to see everybody just chill out a second.
Yeah.
I love the reshoring and everything that comes with that, but it's hard to operate sometimes when you don't know exactly what the next move is, and it could come tomorrow, it could come in a week, it could come in a month. And it just makes everybody a little skittish on doing those investments. So if we could just kind of everybody take a big giant breath, I think that would help everything get rolling and get all those projects that people are still thinking about, get those things going.
As we were going over this, when you first posed this question to Scott and some of the comments, I was thinking that without saying it, I think everybody touched on the idea of what's your planning horizon, right?
Yeah.
Like how long do you expect to be in business? If that's a long time, you have to kind of screen out some of the noise and just focus on the fundamentals. We did identify some vulnerabilities in supply chain. It will be reshored at some point. That's not an immediate process, but the manufacturing workforce is shrinking. And I heard an economist joke once that the one thing the Fed can't do is make more people. So looking at, again, the labor workforce availability, some of the opportunities that are coming at the macro level from reshoring and nearshoring, it's hard to screen out the current chaos and look a little further down, but I think that's one strategy to kind of lay out your plans. The other thing that I think is very directly relevant to automation is really spending the time on an ROI calculation and really understand the investment piece is easy. You get a quote from MCRI, you know what the system costs, right? But the return side, it's more than just a labor reduction, or I've had so many experiences I've lost count where a customer, an end user, undertook an automation program thinking, or they justified it initially on labor savings, and then when they got in, the real payoff was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Increased capacity, higher quality, operational efficiencies, reliable production scheduling, all those things, and to where the labor was just like a little layer of icing, but the cake was over here, right? So those were some of the comments that went through my head, is again, the planning horizon, and then do your homework when you do identify a project that you want to move forward, and make sure you've identified the real impact on the business.
And now that we know more about that, and we've been doing this for a long time, are there real, I guess, resources out there to help you figure out what those other benefits are? Because I'm still seeing kind of the simple calculation, like we want a 3-year ROI, or maybe it's less than that at this point, right? But they're looking at only one part of the equation. Do you guys, as FANUC, do you help customers figure out what this ROI is? Maybe MCRI, right? You guys kind of have enough experience to guide people on how to calculate that?
Yeah, absolutely. We developed a list of other things to think about. Typically, the customer doesn't necessarily want us to do the ROI calculation for them. They have their own way of doing it. But what I have instructed the sales team to do is to have a list of other things to think about that they're not thinking about, that the automation would allow them to do. And so having that list of unique things to put in front of them, they'll be like, yeah, I didn't think about putting that in my calculation. So certainly that is something we try to do, and work with the customers. If customers are working on an ROI or having challenges with ROI, we're happy to help. And as a last resort, we'll be happy to do the ROI.